All right, we're joined by Ray Borg, who picked up a big win in Eagle FC. Ray, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Going good. Just hanging out for the day before I gotta head back to the gym.
Obviously, a big win over Cody Gibson. Like first round didn't go your way. But then after that, what kind of changes did you make in between that first and second round? Because the second and third round looked completely different.
Yeah, I just kind of had to like reassess how I was fighting. I guess you could say. My coaches were a big help. They obviously my cornermen, they're good at seeing things from the outside, but I was just really trying to just brawl with him. I was really trying to get in there, knock his head off. And I realized once I wasn't like using my technique and wasn't fighting the way I know how to fight, that it was kind of not going the way I wanted to. It's crazy it is, the more you try to knock him out, the less likely you are. So going into the second round, my coaches had kind of told me like, hey man, when you're in there and you're kind of like using like your skill set and you're finessing him, then you're winning the fight hands down. So I realized that, so I went ahead and made those changes and you know came out with the dub.
Are you happy with your performance, or do you kind of wish you did end up getting that finish?
I definitely do think I could have got the finish. After rewatching the fight, after kind of like going through the fight in my own head, I definitely felt like I could have won the fight, or I could have finished the fight, but I was happy with it because of my ability to switch what I was doing mid fight. You know, I was able to go ahead and like realize, okay, you know what I was doing wasn't working. I need to go ahead and change things up to win the fight. And the fact that I was able to do that, mid fight, kind of like in my head showed, the veteran skills that I have, and showed that I was a veteran in the sport and I have the ability to do that. So, that alone made the performance good for me and made me happy with the performance. Even though I always want to finish and I wanted to finish that fight, that was more to me than just going out and just finishing them like that.
Your last two fights were over guys that I think in Jesse and Cody, had they beat you, they're probably getting that UFC or Bellator call. So, what do you think these wins do for you? Because you're obviously still a big name in this sport and in this division.
Yeah, I definitely feel like as my UFC run wasn't cut because of the inability to win fights or anything like that. It was cut short due to the fact that I lost to myself, and I lost to ultimately lost to the scale. So that's kind of what it was, and I could still compete with the best in the world. I still feel like I'm one of the best in the world, especially at a high level. So you know if anybody beats me outside the UFC, they're more than likely pretty damn good. So I guess they deserve that call to the UFC if that's the case. But I don't plan on losing. I don't think there's anybody out there that can beat me, outside the UFC, inside the UFC. When I'm on point, my mind's sharp, I'm a very dangerous person for anybody.
Obviously, you went through everything with your kid and all the family troubles, but it seems like it's getting better. And like two straight fights, made weight, made it to the fight. Like, how much more do you think you have to prove to get back to the UFC? Because obviously, that was kind of the main reason they let you go.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. Like I knew for sure after the Jesse Arnett fight, it wasn't gonna be like, okay, I'm back. I fought a tough guy, beat a tough guy, made the weight that I was supposed to make and things like that. I knew that wasn't gonna be. I knew after one fight, one successful weight cut, because I've had successful weight cuts in the UFC. It's about consistency. So, I'm not too sure how much more I'm gonna have to prove. I just do know that my mind's on one thing, and that's just showing up, being professional, and winning the fight.
Are you surprised like Bellator won, like the kind of the big promotions didn't try to sign you after the UFC let you go, just because you're a guy that fought for UFC gold and are a big name in the division?
No, I was actually I kind of had knew that was something that was coming, just primarily because I'm aware of my UFC run. I'm aware of things like that. So I knew I was kind of like a liability. So at first, like when I didn't get picked up by like Bellator or anything like that, I was like, man, I'm one of the best. I'm really good. I can add a lot of depth to these divisions. So I was a little confused at first on why I wasn't picked up, but and then after just kind of being honest with myself, kind of realizing like, hey man, I had to tell myself like, you put yourself in this position. You didn't show up when you were supposed to. You didn't make weight. So, at first it was like kind of like a little stinger, like, oh damn, dude, I can't believe I haven't gotten picked up yet. But I was like, the maturity the way that I've grown over the past year, kind of like put it all in a perspective to me, and let me know like, hey, did this to yourself, shot yourself in the foot. Now you just got to climb yourself out of this hole.
Are you still under contract with Eagle?
Yeah, so I have a few fights with Eagle. So, I'm really happy with Eagle. I'm they run things amazingly. They run things down to the T, super professional. So, I'm pretty happy with Eagle FC right now, and I'm happy to be signed with them for the next few fights.
Are you hoping that March card in the States back in Miami, or are you okay with if Habib calls you up and said, we want you to go into one of our Russia cards?
You know, I would definitely love to stay in the States. That's it's easy. It's easier to travel, especially after going to Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi was kind of a lot rougher of a trip than I thought. But it's kind of cool to have that stamp on your passport. I've been around the world. I've been to Russia, so it'd be a cool experience. But I definitely like to stay, in the States for the next couple. But I'm also a gamer, so if they tell me, hey Ray, we need you to fight so and so place, I would never say, nah, I don't really feel like going that far or anything like that. I would say, all right, put me on the next plane.
Do you really care who you fight next, or is it more about like getting these top guys not signed to the UFC so you can kind of knock them down and beat them?
No, I don't really mind. The only thing I care about is just making sure that, I'm fighting good competition. I don't want to fight anybody who's like 4-0 or 5-0. No disrespect to them, but I have something to prove right now to myself, to other people, to my manager, and that's that I will show up, fight whoever, and beat still high level competition. So I don't really mind who I fight. I just want to make sure that it's someone good. I don't care anything other than like that they're good and that they're, it's going to get me moving forward in my career.
What is kind of the goal for you this year then?
Goal is to just win, man. Win. That's my mind is like so clouded by winning that I started to forget certain things. Like I forgot that because Eagle FC is Khabib's promotion, that it was going to get a lot of attention, a lot of eyes. So, like on fight week, all the attention that it got, all the media attention that it got and things like that, it like took me by like a small surprise because like, oh wow, I forgot that this is Khabib's show. So it's going to be a big show because like I said, the only thing I've been thinking about this since I've been cut from the UFC is just winning, whoever it is, whatever is winning. So my goal for the year is just to get as many fights as I can. That's healthy. I'd love to get a bunch of fights, but realistically, a lot of fights is really hard on your body. So I want to get a good amount of fights that's fair on my body and that just keeps me moving me forward. So winning in fights is all I got planned for this year.
Are you hoping you can maybe get a crack at that belt in Eagle?
Yeah, man. If there's one way to prove yourself, it's snatching up belts outside the UFC. Like I can, definitely people can like, win a bunch of fights. I could win a bunch of fights, but if there's something that's going to catch eyes, not just to the UFC or anybody, but if there's something that's going to catch eyes, to see like, Ray Borg got cut from the UFC and he's just out here snatching belts from everybody. So, I would, if they told me, then for sure, 100%.
How much better do you think you are now compared to like a few years ago when everything was going on in your life? Because it's not even like just the weight or the training. It just seems like you're a much better fighter now too.
Yeah, I feel like, man, it tons better. And, obviously my skill set has gotten a lot better, but I just got to say that the maturity and, the obstacles that I've had to overcome have really built me to be better, to skill wise, all that kind of stuff. So I'm in a way different spot. My son has a big role to play in it and things like that. The things that I've been through with him, the things that he's been through, my career. So I think just maturity and growth have opened up my skill set, as crazy as that sounds.
Do you think it's only like a matter of time until you're back in the UFC?
I think so, man. I mean, like I said, I'm down to be wherever I'm at, as long as I'm getting paid, fighting good competition. But my thing is I have unfinished business in the UFC is my thing. Like, if I did everything that I could do in the UFC and if I made it as far as I was able to go and then it got cut, I would have been like, okay, well, you know what? Let's land somewhere good outside the UFC, blah, 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 right? But I got too much unfinished business in the UFC. I got too much shit that I need to do and accomplish before I can go ahead and say I'm wiping my hands with the UFC. So yeah, I think it's only a matter of time, and I think my skill set's too good, and as soon as I've shown that I'm professional and that I'll show up anytime, every time, then I think it's only a matter of time from there.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that you're only 28. Like you showed up into the UFC as like a 21, 22-year-old.
Yeah, man, I had a memory pop up like on my phone not too long ago, and like it's crazy, man. Like I've spent almost my entire career in the UFC, and not many people can say that. Like I, became an amateur fighter at 18. I was only amateur for a year, and then I was only pro for a year before I got signed to the UFC. So this has been a lifelong sport for me, and I put a lot into it. And a lot of people forget. I forget, man. Sometimes like I forget like how young I am. Like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, man, God, I'm old. I feel like a veteran. So I it's pretty crazy.
Do you think you're just kind of hitting your prime or like not even really in your prime yet? Because people always talk about the prime like 28 to like 32, and you're kind of just hitting that right now.
I wouldn't say I think I'm close to my prime. I think I was still fighting a little bit like my old ways in a sense. When I was younger, I was still kind of like resorting to just my grappling, even though I've always had striking abilities. I was always resorting to what I was comfortable with. And now I'm comfortable with everything. So now I'm just coming out of my shell. Everyone's seeing my striking abilities. Everyone's starting to see that I'm a very well-rounded fighter. And then pretty soon people are going to be, people used to only be scared of the takedowns and the ground game. Now they're going to be scared of everything soon. And then, shortly after that, I think I'm going to start hitting my stride and then hit my prime. And, I think I'm really close to hitting my prime. I've been in the sport a really long time.
Just two more things. Is 125 like completely done with, or like are you just kind of focused on bantamweight from now on?
No, for sure, man. I got to prove some stuff to some people. I got to jump through some hoops, but I'm willing to do it to show that, I can compete with these 35ers. I'm happy with the last two fights that I've gotten because, in my opinion, Cody Gibson and Jesse Arnett are probably the biggest it's going to get for size-wise for bantamweights because Cody was big, but people don't really know who Jesse Arnett is. And not only is he good, but he's big. I thought he was bigger than Cody. Like I think they're close to the same height, maybe not or maybe they might be the exact same height. But Jesse was just big, man. Like he was a big guy and I had no issues with it. The weight, the size, no issues. Even with Cody, like I had to make some like game plan adjustments like for his size and his like what he was doing because Cody really threw me off because as long as he was and as tall as he was able to fight short. So that kind of threw me off. That needed some adjustments. But, same thing. So I can compete with these bantamweights. So I'm really comfortable with that. But I can also make flyweight. And everyone knows that when I go down to flyweight, everybody's in trouble. Everybody's in trouble. It's a big difference, for me at bantamweight and at flyweight. I still personally think that I perform way better at flyweight. I keep my strength. When I come down to flyweight properly and I don't do these crazy, stupid cuts from 160 pounds, I'm still strong. I'm not like these other guys who drop a weight class and they lose strength or they deteriorate their chin and things like that. When I make 125 properly and healthy, I'm still extremely strong, but I'm just faster, I'm more agile. I'm more on my toes. I like the way I perform at 25. So as soon as I can prove that I can be at that weight class successfully all the time, then yeah, for sure I'm going back down.
Just last thing I want to touch on is you were supposed to fight Brandon Moreno 3 times. Like the bus hits it in, bout rescheduled, and then you had to pull out. Like when you were kind of studying to fight him, did you ever think he would get that belt around his waist at one point?
No, never. I really didn't, man, because me and my coaches talk about it quite a bit. And like I like Moreno. We actually follow each other on Instagram. He says nice things about me to me. I say nice, he's a family guy. When you have kids, and you're a family guy, you kind of like, the respect is a little bit different. But with all respect aside, that fight, me and him would have played out easily in my favor for sure. And it was just about that a fight that never came about. Like the first time he got injured.
Yeah.
The first time we were scheduled to fight, I think like in November or something like that, and then he got injured. So then they rebooked it to February, and then the whole bus incident happened, and then they rebooked it to only a few weeks later in Chile. And then my son, was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, and he had to start having brain surgeries, and I had to stay back. It was a scary time in his life, scary time in, mine and his mom's life. So it was the right call to be with him instead of going out of the country, because God forbid something serious would have happened and I wasn't even in the States, so, but it was just a fight that never came to, and I hope it does one day. He's a good guy. He's a good kid. He's really talented, tough as nails, man. Tough. That's the one thing I've always said about Brandon Moreno is that's why he beat Figueroa, It's because, one, I think he's better skilled than Figueroa, but two, he wasn't scared of him. Everyone's scared of Figgy, and he wasn't scared of him, and it showed, and he got the win. So, I definitely think that that's a fight that could still possibly happen.
Just building that off that quickly is you're obviously a former flyweight. Like, do you think they go to a fourth fight? Like the UFC rarely does 4 fights, but they're 1-1-1, or would you rather see them book against 2 different guys, and then if they both win, then you redo it, so it's not 4 straight fights?
That's kind of a tricky situation because honestly, so the opinion and honesty, a fourth fight does need to happen. It just only makes sense, but my opinion, I don't want to see a fourth fight happen, and I don't think anybody else, because that's how you make the division stale. For example, like Anderson Silva was an amazing champion, but it did get to the point where it's like, man, kind of want to see a new champ in there. I kind of want to see some change. People like change. Some people do, some people don't, but a lot of people in the sport, they like change. It's a hot hand sport. They like what's hot, and so I don't want to see a fourth fight from a fan perspective. I'd like to see, I think his name's like Askar.
Yeah, Askarov.
Yeah, I would like to see him fight Figgy, or maybe I would actually like to see him fight Moreno, maybe, because I thought Moreno won that fight.
Yeah.
I hands down thought Moreno for sure won that fight. I was like blown away when they didn't give it to him. So that's a fight I'd like to see happen again. But other than that, man, I don't think there's any strong contenders in that division right now. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I can't really think of a whole lot of strong contenders in that division.
Yeah, it'd be obviously Moreno, and then it's like Askarov, and then Pantoja, Kai Kara France, and those are kind of the top 3. But other than that, like there isn't a whole lot of guys that are ready for that title shot.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, man. I mean, what's his name? The Australian kid.
Kara France.
Kara France. He's good, and he's doing good. But I mean, man, I feel like if you're going to fight for the title, but you have losses recently, they can't be finishes, man. I don't feel like you can be getting finished and then go ahead and fight for the belt, So, I think even though because he knocked out Cody and things like that, he's calling for a title shot and this and that. I think he needs a couple more tough fights before he goes ahead and gets that shot. But other than that, yeah, I mean that is kind of what makes it tough is who else they're gonna give the champ.
Well, Ray, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no problem, man. My pleasure.